Welcome, dear listener, and thank you for choosing to spend this quiet time with us. This audiobook novel is crafted as a gentle companion for your moments of rest, designed to help weave an atmosphere of deep peace around you. Whether you're settling down for the evening or simply seeking a pause in your day, we hope you find a sanctuary of calm within these words. The story you are about to hear is titled Warm Steam from a Clay Mug. Within its chapters, we invite you to step into the quiet comfort of the Stone Hearth Cottage, where the simple, grounding ritual of preparing tea becomes a meditation. Join Arthur in noticing the gentle shift of morning light, the soothing warmth of his familiar mug, and the subtle sounds that mark the beginning of a peaceful day. Before you drift deeper into relaxation and perhaps set your device aside, should you find comfort here and wish for more moments like this, perhaps consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel. It helps others discover this quiet space too. And now, take a soft breath, allow yourself to settle, and let us begin the gentle journey into warm steam from a clay mug. Chapter 1. The Quiet Stirring. The stillness of the cottage held the pre-dawn chill, a deep quiet that seemed to absorb even the softest sounds. Outside, the world was a palette of muted blues and deep grays, the very cusp of morning yet to fully declare itself. Inside the Stone Hearth Cottage, the air was cool against the skin, carrying the faint, resting sense of old wood, dried herbs, and the cool mineral tang of the thick stone walls. Light was less an illumination and more a subtle lessening of the dark, filtering almost imperceptibly through the small panes of the kitchen window, just enough to trace the outlines of familiar shapes, the sturdy wooden table, the backs of the chairs, the line of hooks holding utensils against the plaster wall. Arthur stirred gently in the quiet. There was no abruptness to his waking, more a slow surfacing, like a pebble gently nudged by an underwater current. He lay still for a moment, simply breathing, feeling the soft weight of the blankets over him, the familiar coolness of the linen sheet against his cheek. The only sound was his own quiet breath, a soft rhythm in the profound silence. Slowly, deliberately, he pushed back the covers, the movement creating a faint rustle of fabric that seemed loud in the stillness. He swung his legs over the side of the bed, his bare feet finding the smooth, cool surface of the flagstone floor. The sensation was grounding, a familiar anchor to the start of the day. He stood, letting his eyes adjust further to the dim light. The shapes in the room resolved themselves more clearly now, the simple wardrobe against the far wall, the small chest of drawers, the door slightly ajar, leading out toward the main room and the kitchen beyond. He moved toward the door, his steps measured and quiet on the stone. The familiar floorboards underfoot offered no creak, worn smooth by time and countless quiet passages like this one. The air felt slightly cooler here, away from the residual warmth held by the blankets. He paused, listening. The cottage remained deeply silent, holding its breath in the pre-dawn hush. Entering the small kitchen space, the slightly stronger light from the window guided him. It wasn't bright, but a pearly luminescence that touched the edges of things. He could see the faint sheen on the copper kettle sitting on the cast iron stove, the dark silhouettes of pots hanging from a rack overhead. He moved towards a simple counter, his hand reaching out instinctively for the kettle's handle. It was cool to the touch, its surface smooth and solid. He lifted it its empty weight familiar, and carried it the few steps to the stone sink. The turn of the cold tap handle produced a low groan from the pipes deep within the walls, followed by the gentle rush of water. The sound seemed to fill the small space, echoing slightly against the stone. He held the kettle under the stream, watching the water cascade into the opening, feeling the increasing weight in his hand. The water was icy cold, carrying the deep chill of the earth from where the well drew its source. He filled it carefully, judging the level by the change in sound and weight, then turned off the tap, plunging the kitchen back into near silence, save for the soft dripping of a single lingering drop from the faucet. He placed the kettle onto the stovetop with a soft metallic sound. Reaching for the box of matches kept nearby, he struck one, the flare briefly illuminating his hand and the surrounding surfaces before settling into a steady, small flame. He lit the gas ring under the kettle, the quiet whoosh of the gas igniting a familiar morning sound. A low blue flame appeared, licking gently at the base of the copper. Almost immediately, a faint hum began to emanate from the kettle, the sound of molecules stirring, of coolness beginning its slow surrender to warmth. Turning toward the cupboard where the mugs were kept, Arthur slid the wooden latch, another small, distinct sound in the quiet room. His hand moved past the everyday mugs to find the one he sought, a sturdy clay mug, slightly larger than the others, its surface bearing the subtle irregularities of something made by hand. He drew it out, feeling its comforting heft, the slightly rough texture of the unglazed base, the smoother, cool glaze of the body. He held it for a moment, cradling its potential for warmth, before placing it gently on the counter beside the stove, ready for the ritual to come. The first true light of dawn was now beginning to paint a soft stripe across the far wall, signaling the quiet transition into day. The kettle's hum grew steadily stronger, a promise of warmth in the cool morning air. Chapter 2. The Steeped Aroma. The low hum of the kettle gradually intensified, shifting in pitch as the water inside grew hotter. It was a sound that filled the quiet kitchen, not with noise, but with a sense of gentle activity, a comforting undercurrent to the stillness. Arthur stood near the stove, his attention lightly held by the process. He watched the copper surface of the kettle, noticing how the faint light from the window reflected upon it, creating soft, wavering highlights. The air around the stove began to feel subtly warmer, a localized pocket of heat in the cool room. He rested his hand lightly on the edge of the wooden counter, feeling the familiar grain beneath his fingertips, worn smooth over years of use. From a small wooden box on the shelf, he selected a pinch of dried herbs, the pale feathery blossoms of chamomile and the darker, slightly curled leaves of mint. Their combined scent, faint and dry at first, held the promise of soothing fragrance. He placed the herbs into a small earthenware teapot, its dark brown glaze catching the light dully. The pot itself was cool and solid in his hands, another familiar object in this quiet morning ritual. He set it beside the waiting clay mug, creating a small tableau of readiness on the counter. The kettle's hum reached its crescendo, transitioning into a soft, steady boil. Before a whistle could build, Arthur reached out and turned off the gas flame with a quiet click. The sudden absence of the hum made the kitchen feel even quieter for a moment. He lifted the kettle, feeling its substantial weight now, balanced by the heat radiating from its sides. Steam began to escape from the spout in gentle, translucent puffs, momentarily clouding the air before dissipating. Carefully tilting the kettle just so, he poured the hot water over the herbs in the teapot. A cloud of fragrant steam instantly billowed upwards, carrying the distinct mingled aromas of chamomile and mint, now awakened by the heat. The scent was clean, slightly sweet, and deeply calming, filling the small kitchen space with its gentle perfume. Arthur watched the steam rise, admiring the way it caught the strengthening morning light filtering through the window pane, swirling and dancing in intricate, ever-changing patterns before vanishing into the air. He placed the lid on the teapot, the ceramic pieces making a soft clink as they met. The rising steam now found its escape through the small hole in the lid, a thinner, more focused plume reaching towards the low ceiling. He let the tea steep, allowing time for the water to draw out the herb's essence. There was no rush. He stood quietly, listening. Outside, the sounds were beginning to emerge, the distant, tentative chirping of a waking bird, the soft sigh of a breeze stirring the leaves in the woods bordering the cottage garden. Inside, the only sound was the faint, almost imperceptible ticking of an old wooden clock somewhere in the main room, a slow, steady heartbeat marking the passage of these quiet moments. He observed the teapot, noticing how the dark glaze seemed to deepen as it absorbed the heat, its surface becoming warm to the touch. The water inside, visible through the spout, was slowly taking on a pale golden hue as the herbs released their color and flavor. The weight itself felt peaceful, a pause suspended in the gentle aroma and the quiet expectation of warmth. Chapter 3. The Embrace of Warmth. The scent of chamomile and mint had fully blossomed in the kitchen air, a soft, herbaceous fragrance that spoke of calm. Arthur judged the steeping time complete not by a clock, but by the deepening color visible when he tilted the earthenware teapot slightly, and by the rich aroma that now felt settled in the room. He lifted the small teapot. Its surface was pleasantly warm, the weight comfortable and familiar in his hand. He brought it over to the waiting clay mug, positioning the spout carefully over the opening. Slowly, steadily, he poured the infused liquid. The pale golden tea flowed in a silent stream at first, then created a soft murmuring sound as it hit the bottom of the mug and began to fill it. He watched the level rise, the light catching the surface of the liquid, making it shimmer slightly. Tiny fragments of herbs swirled gently in the current before beginning to settle. He poured until the mug was nearly full, leaving just enough space at the top. The last few drops fell from the teapot spout with a delicate plink-plonk sound onto the surface of the tea below, sending out tiny concentric ripples that quickly vanished. He placed the now lighter teapot back onto the counter beside the stove. Steam rose steadily from the surface of the tea in the mug, less voluminous than before, but just as intricate, twisting and curling in the still air. Arthur reached out, placing one hand on either side of the clay mug. The heat radiating from it was immediate and deeply comforting, a tangible warmth that seeped through the thick ceramic. It wasn't a harsh heat, but a steady, gentle warmth that invited touch. He curled his fingers around the mug's body, feeling the slight texture of the glaze under his palms, the solid, grounding weight of the vessel. It felt substantial, reassuring. He lifted the mug carefully from the counter. The weight felt good in his hands, balanced and present. He held it for a moment, simply appreciating the sensation of warmth spreading into his palms and fingers, a welcome contrast to the lingering coolness of the morning air on his arms. The steam continued to rise, carrying the gentle scent directly towards him as he held the mug before him. He inhaled softly, drawing in the calming fragrance one more time before preparing to move. With the warm mug held securely in both hands, he turned from the counter and began to walk slowly towards the main room, towards the worn wooden armchair that sat near the largest window. His bare feet made their familiar soft padding sound on the cool flagstones, each step deliberate and unhurried. He moved with care, mindful of the hot liquid, his focus entirely on the simple act of carrying the warmth across the room. The morning light, stronger now, slanted through the window ahead, illuminating a pathway across the floorboards, highlighting the swirling patterns in the old wood grain. He navigated towards the chair, drawn by the light and the promise of a quiet place to sit and savor the simple comfort he held in his hands. The journey was short, just a few paces, but it felt like a small, peaceful procession. Chapter 4. Gazing Through the Pane. Arthur reached the worn armchair, its familiar shape a comforting silhouette against the window's growing light. He lowered himself carefully into the seat, the old springs giving a soft sigh beneath his weight. The fabric of the chair, a faded, durable weave, felt familiar against his clothes. He adjusted his position slightly, settling into the familiar contours, and brought the warm clay mug to rest gently in his lap, still cradled in both hands. The heat radiated upwards, a pocket of contained warmth against the cool morning air that still filled the cottage. He paused, simply sitting, feeling the solid presence of the chair beneath him and the comforting warmth of the mug in his hands. Outside the window, the day was unfolding softly. The initial gray light had given way to clearer tones, though the sun itself remained hidden behind a thin layer of high cloud, diffusing the light into a gentle, shadowless illumination. He lifted the mug slowly toward his lips, feeling the steam brush against his face, carrying that soothing scent of chamomile and mint. He took a slow, careful sip. The tea was hot, but not scalding. The warmth spread instantly from his mouth downwards, a pleasant internal blooming that felt deeply comforting. The flavor was mild, subtly sweet from the chamomile, with the clean, refreshing undertone of mint. It was a simple taste, uncomplicated and calming. He lowered the mug back to his lap, letting the warmth settle within him. His gaze drifted outwards through the clean glass of the window pane. The small garden just outside was jeweled with dew. Countless tiny droplets clung to the leaves of the hardy shrubs and the blades of grass that grew close to the cottage walls. Each droplet acted like a miniature lens, capturing and refracting the soft morning light, making the garden sparkle with a quiet, ephemeral brilliance. He watched a single larger drop quiver on the tip of a broadleaf, catch a glint of light, and then release, falling silently onto the dark earth below. The small event held his attention for a moment, a tiny drama played out in the stillness. Beyond the garden, the edge of the woods began. The trees stood silent and tall, their leaves a mixture of deep greens and the first hints of autumnal gold, though the season hadn't fully turned. The air outside seemed utterly still. No branches swayed, no leaves rustled audibly from this distance. The only sound that drifted in was the occasional melodic call of a bird, clear and distinct in the quiet air, seeming to emphasize the surrounding peace rather than disturb it. Arthur took another slow sip of tea, the warmth once again spreading through him. He wasn't thinking, not in any directed way. His mind felt as still as the scene outside the window. His awareness rested gently on the physical sensations, the warmth of the mug against his hands, the taste of the tea, the solid feel of the chair, the soft light filling the room. He observed the intricate patterns of the veins on a nearby leaf through the window, the subtle variations in the color of the tree bark, the way the light made the damp earth look dark and rich. It was a moment of pure observation, held softly in the embrace of warmth and quiet. The world outside the pane seemed both distinct and intimately connected to the peace within the room. Chapter 5. The settling stillness. The level of the tea in the heavy clay mug had lowered significantly. The intense heat had softened, replaced by a gentle residual warmth that still felt pleasant against Arthur's palms. He took another sip, smaller this time, savoring the last of the mild herbal flavor. The steam rising from the surface was now just a faint, almost invisible wisp, catching the light only occasionally. The ritual was drawing to its natural close. He held the mug for another moment, appreciating its familiar weight and texture one last time before leaning forward slightly. With a slow, deliberate movement, he placed the mug down on the small, round wooden table that stood beside the armchair. The thick clay met the worn wood surface with a soft, solid thump, a sound of finality that resonated quietly in the room. The simple action felt complete, satisfying in its own small way. He leaned back again into the chair, his hands now resting loosely on the armrests. His gaze remained directed toward the window, but his focus softened. He was no longer studying the individual dewdrops or leaves, but rather taking in the whole scene with a gentle, unfocused awareness. The light outside had brightened further, the diffused sunlight giving the garden and the edge of the woods a soft, clear glow. The dew was beginning to evaporate from the upper surfaces of the leaves, though the grass still held its damp sheen. A small spider web, previously invisible, now caught the light between two branches of a rose bush, its delicate threads traced in silver. Inside the cottage, the light had also shifted. The stripe of sunbeam that had earlier touched the far wall had moved, now illuminating a patch of the flagstone floor near Arthur's feet. It highlighted the subtle textures and color variations in the stone, the smooth, worn areas, the slightly rougher patches, the faint lines where minerals had settled over time. Dust motes, disturbed perhaps by his earlier movements, danced slowly in the beam, swirling in lazy patterns before settling again. The air in the room felt still and quiet, holding the lingering faint scent of the tea and the cool freshness of the morning. The ticking of the old clock seemed a little louder now, or perhaps just more noticeable in the absence of the tea-making sounds. It was a slow, steady rhythm, tick-tock, tick-tock, a comforting, unobtrusive measure of the quiet moments passing. Arthur sat without moving, his breathing slow and even. There was nothing to do, nowhere to be, just this peaceful observation of the morning unfolding. A sense of quiet satisfaction settled over him, the gentle completion of a simple, nourishing routine. The warmth from the tea lingered within him, a subtle feeling of comfort and ease. The quiet sounds of the house and the gentle scene outside the window combined to create an atmosphere of profound stillness. The clay mug sat solidly on the table, a quiet testament to the ritual performed. The steam had vanished completely now, leaving only the empty mug and the soft morning air. The day had fully arrived, bringing with it not demands or noise, but a continuation of the peaceful presence that had begun with the first stirrings in the quiet dawn. Arthur remained seated, simply being enveloped in the calm of the Stone Hearth Cottage.